welcome to Heart to Heart.
Yep.
I'm Lou.
John.
And we want to talk about secrets and lies. I feel like I should say secrets and lies and then talk about the year, because I feel we live in a world where things are not as secretive as they used to be, but there's so much misinformation going around, and I think particularly on social media, it's almost become like living with a drinker. You never quite know what's the truth and what isn't. And so secrets and lies are they're just part of the normal day life, aren't they? Of both being a drinker and living with a drinker. Okay, let's talk to you first as the drinker. Secrets and lies. Okay, where did that fit in your everyday life as a drinker?
The lies bit, I think. I would have said I was a very truthful person, although there is a saying in AA, how do you know that an alcoholic is lying? Because their lips are moving, which I think is slightly harsh, but there is some truth in it, I think the lies were one of the tools that you use to preserve your drinking, because somebody's trying to take it away, or that's what you feel. Somebody is trying to stop you drinking now, and it's really important to you. Therefore, you tell lies, and I would tell lies about, were you in the pub? No, reeking of booze. How many did you have? Oh, and I only had a couple.
Staggering around.
Yeah. I'm just going out for a paper. I'll see you on Wednesday. And it was these sort of lies that happened all the time. So I would lie about money. I would lie about because it was all about surrounding the alcohol. I didn't lie about much else, but I did lie about my drinking. Secrets. I suppose they came with the territory. The secrets were. I would hide booze. I would hide the fact I tried to booze. I was drinking. I hide the fact that I was bouncing checks all over Glasgow. I hid these sort of things. So these were my secrets. My secrets were that I was drinking, and I was drinking heavily.
And did you hide from your mum? For your whole family, or just your wife, or your friends? How secretive and how much lies did you do? Who knew?
Well, the thing was, my social circle dwindled.
Right. Okay.
It dwindled very quickly because in my before I got married, I was just a party animal, and the people that I went about with were party animals. It was drink, drugs, and rock and roll. And we did it, and we did a lot of drink, we did a lot of drugs. We did quite a bit of rock and roll, So that was life.
Yeah.
And then when I got married, my wife decided that she did not like the party animals, that I went about with, and she banned them from the house, and and slowly but surely this gulf opened up, and I just didn't see them very often, and then I was a lone drinker. So I would wander over to the pub and have a drink by myself. So really, it was just her and me. I'd turn up at my mother's. I would maybe have a couple of beers, and that was it. She didn't see it until my wife actually called her in one day. After I was on a binge, and I've been in a binge for days, a couple of weeks.
I think that was the same with my husband. Actually, he would have been mortified if his family knew. In fact, the most successful intervention I think I ever did with my husband was to bring his family in, because he was horrified.
She brought my mother in, but it wasn't very successful because I just got up and I won't say exactly what I said, but something about why are you here, but not quite as polite as that, and just put on my jacket and walked out and went to the pub, obviously.
Can I pick up on something, because I think it's really important that actually you were basically truthful as a person, and I think this is really key that you listen to this. But lying and drinking, because they're always trying to minimize and hide the extent to which they are really kind of hooked into what they're doing, kind of go with the territory. But what happens is we begin to, again, understandably but not very helpfully, as the partner, or or again as the parent or the child, a friend. There's lots of different relationships we talk about here. What we begin to say is, I will never trust you again. I mean, that's again something I said to my partner, over and over again.
Yeah.
But what you're doing then is you're actually beginning to let that bit of unreliable behaviour and the way that you operate in the drink to pollute all the other areas. And so you, in the end, all of your trust is taking a hit. And watch that, because that's going to make the situation even worse. What you'll find generally, not always, but generally, in a situation where you did have a happy family, or you do from time to time have a happy relationship, is that lying is contained around the protection of the drink.
For me, it was mostly that, but anything to do with the drink, I would lie.
Yeah.
I was generally pretty honest, although as I say, I bounced checks, I stole money out of a purse, I did these sort of things. And so that dishonesty, but it was all about drinking. As soon as you took the drinking away, that all went with it.
So watch I'll Never Trust You Again, because again, you're just giving the drink even more power. I will never trust you when you're drinking again, is a very valid statement to the situation that you're in. So just that again, I always say this, isn't it? That doesn't mean to say it doesn't really hurt, because the things that you said are all betrayals of trust.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying it's not painful, but I am saying it's painful enough without letting it pollute other areas that actually are not really impacted.
I think that's true, but what you have to say is that drinkers come from all walks of life, all stations, and all characters. And there were people who, even after they got sober, were just liars, cheats, thieves. And I used to sit around the AA meetings a lot, and people would say, I love everybody in AA, and I used to say, well, I don't. There are people in here I wouldn't have drank with, never mind get sober with, and so there are nasty people, who are drinkers. Although you find most of them, once they get sober, are fine.
Yeah, I think that probably those that continue with our website are doing it to try and preserve healthy, good, loving relationships, but not necessarily, and I totally agree with you. That isn't always the case, but a lot of the time it is if someone's got a drink problem.
Sure.
So let's then look at us then, secrets and lies in us. Lying, I think it wasn't an outright lie that I would do about my circumstances if I could avoid it. I mean, I had a kind of a particular ethos that lying wasn't on. So I think that what happened to me is that I would minimize to myself and to other people kind of some of the impact of what was going on.
I see,
So there was a bit of lying going on. I think when I was trying a few interventions and my husband got kind of wind of that, I would lie and actually not tell him what was going on because I was plotting and planning. So then I would lie. But I think the worst thing for me was the secrecy. I had a public persona. I was a well-known singer-songwriter, did quite a lot of stuff on the TV at one point. And so actually just not letting people know about that. It wasn't the days when, you can get someone like Peter, the Spider-Man was the guy that you did the blog on, I should have put you on the
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man. But he did a blog recently, and someone publicly began to own that they had difficulty with drink.
Yeah.
And actually nowadays, because there's so much more emotional and literacy, you almost get a clap for that, of really owning it and kind of, and everybody supports you. That didn't happen in my day. Everybody would have, particularly as I was a kind of a gospel singer, so they would have judged me instantly and dismissed me. And so I had to kind of keep that. But it wasn't just my position, I felt really ashamed.
Yeah.
You know, some of the time I was a counsellor, you know, and you really feel as a counsellor that you should get your head around what's happening.
But I think that goes with the territory. Again, you know, guilt and shame go with alcoholism, and very often it's not, you know, you feel guilty and ashamed of your drinker.
Absolutely.
Because you feel that, you know, you should have done something about this. You know, this should not be happening in your life. You know, your life is orderly. Your life is, you know, it should be an open book, but it can't be, because you know, you can't let people in there, because they would see all of this. They would see this mess. They would see this chaos, you know, and they would look at you and they would judge you. And that's what you feel.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily that's the case, but that's what you feel.
I mean, the most obvious place of that is if my husband began to drink in public, and he would always become a bit inappropriate. His jokes would become unpolitically correct, and, you know, which would be even worse nowadays. Yeah. What I didn't understand, which I do now, is that I used to feel really embarrassed and ashamed. But actually what people were thinking is, poor Lou, that must be really hard having a husband like that. And so I was getting all the sympathy in the room. Yeah. But because I loved him, that wasn't quite as simple as, oh, good, look at me, how wonderful I am. Because I didn't, you know, by association, I think you feel some sort of embarrassment. Yeah. So that's really hard. The other risk of coming out of secrecy is what you want, particularly if you're trying to apply something like bottled up. What you don't want is a hit squad that you set up with your family, and you know, so if you then tell your family and then they spend all of their time trying to get you just to leave and get into a kind of a heavy united go, you don't kind of want that. Yeah. So coming out of secrecy is a risk.
Coming out of secrecy is a risk. The problem is addiction thrives in secrecy.
Absolutely.
It thrives in secrecy, you know.
And this is where we come into.
If you have no consequences of your drinking, why change? And, you know, and some of the consequences very often are the fact that, you know, people avoid you.
Yeah.
People dislike you. You know, people don't trust you. But they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't do that unless they knew.
Yeah.
So what very often happens is that, you know, the family circle the wagons, you know, and keep it all inside. Nobody gets to know about it, you know, and the drinker continues blithely.
Very hard to work with. I've just had a situation like that recently, and, you know, it just wasn't owned. People would not own it. In fact, you know, if it got worse, they redoubled their efforts to make sure it kind of nobody knew what was happening. That was really unhealthy. Our bottled up policy is for you to begin to open up, but to, again, think very carefully about how you're going to do that and who you're going to do that with.
But a couple of things that tend to happen if you open up and sort of tell people is that very often what they do is they say, we know.
Yeah.
And absolutely. The other thing is, oh, thank goodness now we can talk about it. You know, it because they're feeling uncomfortable, you know. And when when I was 3 months sober, I went into work and I said to people, you know, I've stopped drinking, and they just started to laugh and say, I know. And so, how did you know? I haven't told you. And I said, well, we knew when you were drinking.
Yeah.
And we know that you've changed. Now you're sober. So very often this veil of secrecy, you know, is transparent. And everybody knows. And then all of a sudden, people are playing a role. It's the emperor's new clothes. Everybody go, no, we don't see it. We don't recognise there's a problem here, you know.
If you don't know that, I think that's more known to our generation. The emperor's new trousers, everybody had no clothes on, and everybody was pretending it was all okay except for a child who said, why aren't there any clothes on?
But it was even more than that, because the emperor's new clothes, it was this tailor came in and supposedly had made him a wonderful suit of clothes.
Right.
You know, and it was the most fashionable suit of clothes, and he was parading about in this fashionable, and in actual fact he was naked.
Yes.
You know, and everybody's going, oh, they're wonderful.
So it's a parable about denial, really.
Yes.
And
except there's one child that said, why is the king get no clothes on?
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, that is an allegory for what often happens.
It's exactly
situation,
what happens. Everybody's got, yes, you've got a wonderful life there. You know, and to all intents and purposes, it looks it, but, you know, behind closed doors, you know, behind the net curtains,
Yes.
what goes on.
So to bring it all together, secrets and lies go with the territory.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand the context of the lies and the secrecy. We really think that people should come out of secrecy, but again, don't go from one extreme to the other. You know, don't announce it on social media or whatever. Find somebody, tell them, gradually expose it. I have to say, one of the things I do regret doing is my truth when I was angry. I did a lot of that. I was very, very scornful when my partner drank and let me down. And it might have been true how I felt, but it did nothing but harm.
Yeah.
And I think push that shame button. And so, again, watch when you come out of secrecy that you don't go into the complete opposite and do exposing and kind of revealing, because that's going to just, again, cause the drinker to go back in and drink even more. So, you know, again, do it wisely, do it a bit at a time, look at what's happening, and then, you know, so I think we say that over and over again, don't we?
The other thing about secrecy is that you may feel that you need to be secret because you're being loyal to the drinker. You know, that anything else is betrayal. But the person you're betraying generally is yourself, because, you know, it stops people going for help because they feel this, you know, what was it the Sicilians called omerta? You know, they have to have this secrecy, all the, you know, to protect the drinker, and in actual fact they stop themselves getting help.
And that's true.
And that's important.
That feeling of disloyalty, I have to say, when you first reveal it, is very strong, but it is just a feeling. You know, it's not congruent with what you're doing. Again, we're trying to keep it under 15. We've not quite succeeded with this one, but thank you for listening. You know, post. I think there's always room for comments, is there, after the video? So we'd love to hear from you and hear what you're thinking and what's going on. So thank you for listening. Lots of love. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And out.